Okay, Anthony, I know you're gonna mess this up, but don't mess it up.
Uh-huh. And what qualifies as messing this review up?
Well, if you give this album anything under a 10, that's messing up.
Well, that doesn't leave me with a whole lot of options, does it?
Oh, well, you know, you could give it an 11, you could give it a 12, you can give it a 13.
Hi everyone,
14,
Anthony Fantano here,
15,
the internet's busiest
16,
music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Bon Iver record, 22 a million. Bon Iver, if you didn't already know, is a musical project masterminded by multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter Mr. Justin Vernon. And this is now his third full-length album under this name. He is following up his very well-received Bon Iver record, which came out about 5 years ago. A record that, honestly, I couldn't really get into as much as other people were, due to its inconsistent songwriting, its weird kind of 80s pastiche thing going toward the end of the record, and the horrible mixing. With this new album, I was hoping for something a little more focused, a little more polished, but it seemed like even from the teaser tracks, I was not going to get that. Not that I anticipated this album to be messy, but it didn't sound like Justin was going to give us a cleaner, more put-together version of his typical sound. He was going to be changing sounds altogether. He's no longer writing the lavish, artsy, indie folk music that he's known for. Instead, he is delivering something that is much more synthetic. He's fiddling with electronics and glitchy production on this one, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of glitch pop albums and folktronic albums that I enjoy quite a bit, but it seems that Justin is using this change of pace as an excuse to not write a coherent song a lot of the time. He seems to work in some Peter Gabriel worship more than usual on some of these cuts too, and I'm not even going to open up the can of worms that is the ridiculous list of song titles on this thing. Now, it's not that there aren't good moments, it's not that there's not beautiful music on this record. There definitely is. The intro track, for example, is absolutely stunning with its drony samples and loops, its chilling and gorgeous vocal harmonies, its kind of choppy chipmunk vocals that add a bit of color to the mix too that I think is pleasant. Also, the lone sax solo that pops up later in the track is also pretty moving. All great ideas, all great pieces of instrumentation, comes together so harmoniously and tastefully, but Justin doesn't flesh it out into a complete song. Instead, he just surrounds these sounds with gimmicky little production tricks and edits and just ends the track off at 2:48 without a real proper ending. And many of the other tracks in the track listing too don't really feel like complete works as much as they do a series of folktronic climaxes that either lack a satisfying beginning or a satisfying finish. They just leave me wanting way more. It's like I'm listening to a bunch of long snippets or motifs, like on the track 715, which is not only like an incomplete thought, but a thought that James Blake had produced and recorded 5 years ago. This sounds exactly like something James Blake did on his debut album. The song 45 feels like an attempt to pull off the same thing, but with horns being manipulated and auto-tuned instead of vocals, which I admit was a more novel thought than what Bon Iver was trying to pull off on Creeks. The song 21 Moon Water has no sense of direction at all. It's like he sort of bunched together a group of random ideas and transitions and just layered them on top of one another without any real attention being paid to whether or not these sounds complement one another or glide into or segue into one another well. It's just kind of like experimental ambient folk electronic salad. And despite being 5 minutes long, the only significant progressions on the song 8 are that the instrumentation gets a little louder and an easygoing groove kind of develops. There's a bit of an instrumental breakdown toward the back end of the track too, and it's a shame because this track features one of the most beautiful vocal melodies and soulful chord progressions of the entire record. It just could have done more. It could have gone somewhere. It could have developed to or from something else. For any one of the incredible artists that Justin clearly pulls from on this record, this would have been a mere part of a larger song. I'm also reminded of Sufjan Stevens' electronic opus, The Age of Odds, which this album also pales in comparison to. Now, there are a few very well-written songs worked into the track listing here. Stratford Apartments is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the way that the guitars, the vocals, the horns, the piano on this track come together in a very dreamy way. And the closing track on this thing is a gorgeous, beautiful, moving, and powerful piano ballad that ends the album off on a high note. So it's not like every track here is an underdeveloped piece of filler, but on the other tracks where it seems like Vernon has pulled together a coherent track, once again, the quality of the album suffers at the hand of awful, terrible mixing. Like on the song 33 God. Ugh. The way the vocals and the oversaturated bass and the distorted drums and whatever else at the 1:30 mark on the song come together, in a word, headache. And the song Death Breaths, I could not even begin to describe what a garbled mess this song is. On headphones and on larger speakers, for me, it was actually painful to listen to. This is one of the few songs that I could say sounds best on a pair of laptop speakers far away. Like with his last album, though I would say even worse in a way, Justin tries to come together with very instrumentally dense and expensive sounding lo-fi music, and it just does not come together well. Some of the compositions on this thing are huge. They're ambitious. Some of the biggest I would say Vernon has ever pulled together. But he sees fit to just filter it through just the most awful recording and mixing job possible. It's not even rickety or rootsy in an endearing way. It just sounds really overblown and out of whack. The music on this album plays a lot like how the cover of this album looks. Here's a bunch of small and intricate little pieces of art. I've assembled them in such a way that you'll think it's really cryptic and obtuse and like it's really deep or something, when in reality, it doesn't really add up to much. If there's anything brave about this album, it's brave that Bon Iver would see fit to package together a bunch of odds and ends that are mostly unfinished and try to sell it as a new album. But because it is Bon Iver, this album will be fawned over regardless, so I guess he's doing exactly what he needs to do to make his fans happy. I personally, though, don't see what's so hype about some subpar folktronica, some Peter Gabriel worship, and James Blake revisions, but whatever. Like I said, there are a couple captivating songs here and there on this thing, and there are plenty of beautiful ideas to be experienced on this album. It's just that many of them don't go anywhere, or they are cut criminally short. I'm feeling a light to decent 5 on this album. Transition. Have you given this Bon Iver record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and you will cry because you probably hate what I think about this album, and that's fine. Feel free to be angry down in the comments. Open invitation. I hope you have a good day otherwise. Forever.